guys, welcome back after Christmas, Bookmas, all the things. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week or so. Today we're kind of doing a multi-purpose video. One, I really wanted to update my TBR cart. I had books on there I wanted to read and was doing a terrible job at actually picking them up. So I decided I wanted a clean slate for a new year, and I thought while I was filling this up, I would tell you the 12 fiction books and the 12 non-fiction books that I want to read in this next year, and I'll put them on the cart, and then I'm gonna fill in, because there will be more space left after that, I believe. Then I'm gonna fill them in. This is what I'm gonna go off of for my TBRs. So what I'm gonna try to go off of. And then if I can't fulfill TBR prompts from this, I'll check my Agatha Christie TBR shelf, and then we'll get into the big TBR shelf. And hopefully then I can like prioritize books that I say I actually want to read. So first we will start with my 12 fiction books of the year. I'm going to keep this fairly brief because there's a lot of books. I did make printables for 12 books to read in 2023 for my patrons over on Patreon. I did 12 books to read in 2023 and then 23 books to read in 2023 because I know some people like that. 23 overall is too much for me, but I actually printed this out twice so that I could have 12 fiction and then 12 nonfiction. Technically that equals more than 23, but this is how my brain is working, so this is what I've done. So let's get on with my fiction books. I think I have physical copies of all of these. I'm just double checking. Yes, okay, they should be all here. My tree is swaying. And this is no particular order. So first one here is Hood. This was on my TBR cart. Thought I could get to it a few months ago. I didn't. I believe this is kind of a retelling of Robin Hood. So historical fiction-ish. It's a trilogy. My husband really enjoyed the trilogy. I really want to read it. Okay, I had to put this book on the list because it needs to be read this next year. At Home in Mitford. I'm on page 10. I tried to read it a while ago and just didn't get into it, but I want to put more effort in. So 2023, that's the year for sure it's gonna get read. Then I also have The Rook. This is book 2 in this like Christian mystery thriller series. And I read book 1 a very long time ago, probably like 2 years ago already. Really need to continue with the series, see if I want to read more after this one or not. This one I believe is a contemporary book. It's The Words Between Us, and I think it's a book about books or some kind of bookish thing. Oh yes, it talks about running a used bookstore. Buzzword for me for sure, bookstore. I've heard good things, haven't picked it up yet. I want to do a video about like bookish books, so I need to read more of them, and hopefully this one will make the list. This is one of the most talked about books. I mean, this is one that people always tell me they love and they'll think I'll enjoy it, and I just don't pick it up. It's The Forgetting. This is a YA, I don't know if it's like dystopian, science fiction-y type book. Maybe fantasy, I don't really know. I'm gonna read it this year. I have my checklist, which makes things easier for me to remember to do. This is the year, you guys. Okay, then I've got a chunker. I really am craving thick books this year, so I've got Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Honestly, I don't know anything about it. It's 1806, so it's historical, but I feel like it might also be fantasy, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, I just have been having a desire to read really big books in the last couple months, so this one will be good for that. And also one of my goals is to read books that are like over 500 pages this year, at least 7 of them, and this one is like around 900 pages. And then we've got a book by Kate Morton, possibly the only one of hers I haven't read yet, The Lake House. Assuming it's dual timeline, one is 1933 and then we're 70 years later. And this one is just under 500 pages. That won't work for my goal for the year, but it's pretty thick. For science fiction, I've got a couple of them here. One is Ender's Game. I tried a chapter of this when I got it out from the library. Decided I really wanted to read it, got a physical copy. Need that push to read it apparently. This is by a Canadian author. It's the rule of 3. After 3 days in the dark, the battle for power begins. So it's science fiction. The rule of 3 is that a person can last 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. A community begins to die in just 6 seconds. So I think this one's a trilogy. I found this one in a little free library a while ago and have since seen this one multiple times, but I want to find the rest of them as well. But I guess I should start by reading book 1. Now for a couple historical fiction. I tried to kind of go a bit diverse with the genres here. We've got The Master Craftsman by Kelly Stewart. This one is set in 1917 and it has to do with the House of Fabergé and the Fabergé egg. And I've read a chapter of this and really enjoyed it, so I think I'll really like this book. This one was on my cart. I took it off and wanted to put it back on. It's Stories That Bind Us. This is the only Susie Finkbeiner book that I own that I haven't read. Our main character is 40 and she's a widow, and we're in 1960s, which is kind of when all her books have been set, and she does them so well. I am going into this thinking I will love it, hoping I will love it, because I've loved her other ones. Okay, and one last one. This one was actually also on my cart, putting it back on. It's Emily Climbs, book 2 in the Emily Star series. I need to read more Ella Montgomery, like always, so this is the one that I want to get to for sure this year. And that like nicely fills that up. I didn't think this through. I'm probably gonna have to rearrange things because some of my books are quite tall coming up that will probably need to be on the top, but we'll rearrange as we go. So those are the 12 fiction books that I want to read in 2023, and then we will go on to the 12 non-fiction. Okay, one of the non-fiction books I do own, kind of. It's coming. I have it ordered, so I want to say that one before I forget. Aggressively Happy. This is by Joy Clarkson. I really don't even know what it is about, but anytime a Clarkson writes a book, I want to get my hands on it. So that one will come on my cart after it arrives at my house. And then the other 11 I have here. One I hope to get to like right away at the beginning of the year is The God of the Garden by Andrew Peterson. It says thoughts on creation, culture, and the kingdom. I loved his other book that I read, Adorning the Dark, and his fiction books that I've read, but this has to get on my list at the beginning of the year if possible. I'm going to be doing TBR games for at least most of 2023, at least the start of 2023, so I'm gonna do what I can to make this one work. Okay, and then I should have looked this up. I don't actually know how to pronounce her name. Maybe I'll Google it now. That would be the smart thing to do. Okay, it is like I thought. I am Malala. So this is The Girl Who Stood Up for Education and Was Shot by the Taliban. I think a very popular book. I found it in a little free library. My dust jacket is on, upside down. I think maybe I got it that way. I would like to read it for myself and then maybe get my 12-year-old daughter to read it if it's good. Surprisingly to me, a lot of the non-fiction books that I have on my list this year, there we go, that worked, they're not Christian nonfiction. I read a lot of Christian nonfiction usually. The majority of my nonfiction is Christian nonfiction. But I feel like this year I've got like a 50-50 split here. Another one I found at a maybe thrift store, maybe a little free library is The Magic of Motherhood. The good stuff, the hard stuff, and everything in between. So this is by Ashley Gadd. She runs Coffee and Crumbs, which I think is maybe a blog, but it's also a podcast. I'm not 100% sure if this book will be super applicable to me now or if it's kind of geared towards younger moms, but I have the book, so I need to give it a try. This one of my patrons talked about months ago, and then I ordered it. I've had it on my shelf. I haven't gotten to it, but I'm going to. A Face for Picasso. So this is about a girl who is a twin, and her sister were diagnosed with Crouzon syndrome, a rare condition where the bones in the head fuse prematurely. And my daughter was born with craniosynostosis, so her soft spot at the top of her head fused too early, and she had to have surgery to remove bone from her skull. So I feel like I feel like I have a bit of a connection to the book, so I think I will really like this. Well, I mean, I think it will be hard to read though, but I think it will be good. I think this one was on my list of nonfiction from last year. The problem was last year I put my nonfiction books on here, but I didn't make myself a checklist, and so I never felt like I needed to read them. But this year I've got the checklist. I think I'm good to go. This one's Keep Showing Up, How to Stay Crazy in Love When Your Love Drives You Crazy by Karen Eman. So this is a Christian marriage book. I've read a couple of her books and I've enjoyed them, so I think it will be really good. This one is How to Read a Book, The Classic Guide to Intelligent Reading. This one, along with pretty much all the nonfiction, I think I'll be reading slowly over the course of a month or maybe more, depending on the book. I don't know how to read a book. Maybe I've been reading them wrong all this time. Found this one in a little free library as well. This is a reread. It's the Birth Order book, Why You Are the Way You Are by Dr. Kevin Leman. I read this book when I was pregnant with my daughter, so like 13 years ago, and I remember so much of it. I think about it so often, and I would like to reread it because I would like refreshers of these things that I think I remember. Then I have Chris Hadfield's An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. I really like everything that I've read by him so far, so I'll try this one out. Another Christian nonfiction, this one is The Truth About Us by Brant Hansen, The Very Good News About How Very Bad We Are. His writing is so easy to read, but like truthful and honest, but hilarious, and I am excited to have another one of his books because I really enjoy his writing. So many of his lines are ones that I feel like you're reading it and you really want to read it out loud to someone because it's that funny. And then two I recently picked up by the same author, John Krakauer. I've got Under the Banner of Heaven. This one is about a cult, and then, which is a buzzword for me, I've got Into Thin Air, and I think this one was about climbing Mount Everest, a personal account of the Mount Everest disaster. I know his books are fairly popular on BookTube. Never tried one of them. Gonna try them both. Actually, these last four books I technically haven't hauled yet, so I'm gonna leave them off to the side because I have a large, massive, huge book haul coming next week. I asked on Instagram if I should share it in one book haul or multiple, and the majority voted one large book haul, so I've got a big one coming. So that was pretty close to filling this up. I have the whole bottom here yet and a little bit of space here, and I have too many books pulled out for that. Here's another stack that I pulled out of books that I would like to read but like aren't top of the list. Oof, okay. Well, we'll just go down the stack and see how far we get here. This first one is The Visitation by Frank Peretti. I don't actually know anything about this. I read most of his books in high school, but not this one. I'm assuming it's just Christian supernatural fiction, but I could be wrong because not all of his are. But there's that one. Then I have a poetry book. This is Poems About Trees. Just a cute little, what are these called? Everyman's Library Pocket Poets. I think they're cute little poetry books. I'm gonna put that one over there. It's by nonfiction. The Pickwick Papers. This is one of the classics I think I want to read this year. I have this old Penguin English library with a orange spine, and it's very floppy feeling, which the feel of the book in your hands should not matter, but it really does. So I'm excited to read that one, or at least give it a try. I don't know. Me and Dickens don't have like the best track record together, I guess. Then I have Randy Alcorn's Deadline. I believe this is the first in a series. Don't really know what it's about. I've enjoyed his fiction and nonfiction books that I've read so far, and I own a couple of his other fiction books, so I should really read them. One I've had on my shelf for a while is My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologizes. This has a different title in the States, I think. My grandmother, something about tells me she's sorry or something. Yeah, I don't know. He's hit or miss with me, but I'd give him a try. The Nature of Fragile Things. This has to do with the San Francisco earthquake, and Gloria just shared a book sharing things that she's learned about her reading tastes in this last year, and she mentioned this as being like one of her favorites, and it's like a historical thriller, mystery thriller kind of thing, I think is what she said, and that sounds really interesting to me, so definitely want to read that. I have Luck of the Titanic. I hauled this one fairly recently. It's a Titanic historical fiction that I'm very curious about. Then I've got Freeverse. This one's been on my list for a while. It's called Freeverse, but the book is not written in Freeverse. I think it's a middle grade book, and that's really all I know. We'll see if I can get to it. A Wolf Called Wander is another middle grade book that's been on my pile forever. I've heard really good things, and it has like illustrations throughout the book, which are pretty cool. And like almost every page has something. I don't know. And then I think the author also has another one about a whale. So if I like this one, maybe I'll check that one out. When the World Was Ours, this is a World War II, or maybe one. I feel like two. Historical fiction, yeah. About 3 friends, and it's inspired by a true story. What About Will? This is a Freeverse novel about 2 brothers, one who has just returned from the Vietnam War, I think, and then his younger brother. So I really liked her Closer to Nowhere and want to read more by Ellen Hopkins. Okay, I got enough room for a couple more books. I have The Alliance. So curious about this one. Found this one in a little free library. It is a science fiction, like post-apocalyptic book. Something about there's a small plane crash in an old order Mennonite community. Yeah, I don't really know. Very intrigued though. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 more, and then the bonus will pop on top. We'll just do the whole stack here. I have Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. I think this is YA fantasy, I think. I don't really know anything about it other than someone I follow on Instagram did a book club for this a long time ago and seemed to really like it, and so I'll be very behind the times. There's at least one other book out in the series, but I want to try this one out first. Okay, then I have Sky Hunter. I think this is science fiction. I really like that I always forget what this part is called, that thing. I like that it has the name of it there. It's really gonna bother me. I know there's like a special name and it's just gone. Yeah, I think this is science fiction. That's all that I think I know. YA probably, and I think it's a duology. I also own book 2. I'll stick that one. We'll stick this one on top for now, because this one is chunky and I don't want it falling on my head. Gone with the Wind. This is one of the classics I would like to get to this year. I'm gonna try a mix of a few really chunky classics like Gone with the Wind, The Pickwick Papers, and then like a few smaller ones interspersed, I think. So we'll put this one here so it doesn't fall on my head. There we go. So all of that, plus these 4 that I technically still need to share in a book haul yet, are what's gonna be my TBR cart for the next season. We'll see how quickly I can get through these. When I do an update next, we'll see. Yeah, there's lots of books I'm excited about for 2023. Some that I just need that like push to like make sure I actually read this year. Let me know some of the books that you are trying to prioritize in this next year. Thanks so much for being here, guys.